but let me just say things are getting worse. Why should we think it's not going to get worse when we got a president of the United States who's on the wrong side of everything? I mean, this is absolutely absurd. We've got a situation where we have a president who does not believe in the very basic things that we all believe in. And even liberal Democrats believed in things that we believe in. But this guy didn't, and he's now president, and we are loyal to our system, and our system of government ended up electing him president. And until the people of this country even elect the Senate back and give to us, we're going to have a tough time thwarting him in what he wants to do. Because, as you know, the legislative branch has two houses. Now, the president doesn't think there is a legislative branch. He thinks that he is running the show. But there is a legislative branch in our Constitution that has two houses. One is the Senate, and one is the House of Representatives. So whenever anybody keeps telling me, why isn't the Congress doing this or that, it is because we don't control the Congress. We control one house of the Congress, the House of Representatives. The Senate has been under their control. We've passed over 300 bills this session of Congress. About half of them, or maybe two-thirds of them, would be considered economy-building bills, things that will come to grips with problems in the economy that help us grow our economy. And of those two-thirds, most of them were passed with Democratic votes in the House, meaning it wasn't just one party pushing it through. And of those 300 bills, the Senate has acted on none of them. None. And so, I mean, it's like they'll go, well, this isn't really an economy-building bill. This is a bill about water. Yeah, water is important. Well, actually, you're doing this just to help the farmers. Yeah, is something wrong with helping farmers? And especially when you have to choose between a little fish, a little Delta smelt like this, and hundreds of thousands of people who work in the agriculture industry, our president and his elite group are siding with a little Delta smelt. By the way, do you all realize that we're in a big drought here in California now? Well, you realize 2 weeks ago, or less than 2 weeks ago, there was a flood in the mountains. We had a huge downpour of rain in the mountains, and it all flooded into the ocean because in the last 10, 15 years, we've had this radical environmentalist group that has permitted us to build absolutely no new reservoirs or any dams, and we actually have a net of loss because they've been tearing the dams down. So when we have a drought and the water God gives us the waters up in the mountains, and then we just let it go right out to the ocean. Now, when we're trying to correct those things in Washington, we pass a bill that will have an impact on that. The Senate doesn't touch it. And so when you hear the do-nothing Congress, or especially if you hear the do-nothing House of Representatives, we've done our job. Don't let anybody tell you we haven't. We have done everything we could do, but we can't do these things and accomplish these things without a vote of the Senate, which means all of us in this upcoming election better damn well do everything we can in those states where we can win a senator back and get involved in some way, even if it's over the internet. Look, get involved in the internet and try to find out who in those states you can contact directly with their emails. Who can you call up and say, look, do you realize that this is what's going on? Or, and so anyway, we're at a turning point at number one. I don't think we will have to survive, but it's going to be very difficult for our country to survive as we know it in the next 2 years, having this person as president of the United States. And by the way, as far as I'm concerned, he has committed so many crimes already. I mean, Richard Nixon would have been put in jail 10 times over by now. I mean, it was this idea that, you have all of the computers that are going out in the IRS at the same time, and just they all went out. What a coincidence was that? It's not a coincidence. Who do they think we are? They're treating the American people with the arrogance and disrespect that you have in tyrannical governments. And that's what we have now, a tyrannical government. And we've got to make sure that in our past, like I have a right-wing past, I'm a libertarian conservative now of some kind. I don't know, I call myself a patriot, say, what are you, a libertarian or a conservative? I go, no, I'm not going to define myself. I'll say I'm a patriot, whatever's best for the United States of America, that's what I am. And, but, you know, my conservative background says, well, you know, we really have to support the police and support the local police, support law enforcement. Have we come to a point now that we have a government that claims that they have a right to have every record of every phone call that we have made, and we're still going to be loyal to law enforcement, to expanding the power of a law enforcement that has expanded its authority way beyond anything that was ever even near acceptable 50 years ago, 25 years ago? I mean, this is not what our founding fathers had in mind to have. You know, you read the Declaration of Independence. Being secure in your documents and papers was one of the reasons we declared war on Great Britain and said we were going to be independent. Yet we now have half of the conservative Republicans joining with all those liberal Democrats saying, oh no, it's a good thing that the government has the right to spy on all of us because we're in jeopardy. No. No, the fact is that the NSA does not have a right to keep all of our records. The first time that went through, the Patriot Act went through, I supported it. It was right after 9/11, but in the bill was what you call, sunset provisions. And that means after a given period of time, those new powers disintegrate. Well, 5 years later, you had to go up for this reauthorization or these these mandates for disintegration would take place. You'd had the sunset. So we got a new bill. And the new bill was very similar to the old bill, except George W. Bush, our great Republican, remember, we're all Republicans, right? Okay. Our great Republican had taken out most of the sunset clauses. So what we're going to do is set down a standard for civil rights and the protection of our liberties based on a crisis moment, and then we're going to make that permanent into our law. That's what these corporate Republicans were telling us. That's what they tried to do, and I voted against it. It passed. I voted against it. And look, we're having trouble now. All of us know that people can rise up in our inner city and they can commit all kinds of crime, and we have always been at the gut level supporting our local police. Now, a black man, an unarmed black kid, was killed by police, and there's rioting going on. We need to really analyze what's happening. We need to figure out, is there a change in police compared to what we have been raised to think about? And that is, the police were always the peacekeepers. That's what a policeman was. A peace officer. Remember that? That's what they used to call police. What do policemen now call themselves? I'm a law enforcement officer. You get the change? There is a fundamental change that's been going on. We are now equipping our police, and I agree with Rand Paul on this. We are equipping our police with military equipment. We are militarizing our police, and so instead of going through our neighborhoods on bicycles or Segways and trying to deter any criminal that's trying to break into our thing, they're going down the street with armored personnel carriers. Something's wrong there. And when we got out of Iraq, I didn't have any problem with giving our equipment to some good guys. Unfortunately, we didn't give them to the good guys. This president gave them to the bad guys. We should have given all of that equipment to the Kurds, who are our only friends in that region. And we didn't. And the super bad guys ended up with it. But what we shouldn't do is make sure all of our local police are armed to the teeth and are treating us as if, well, maybe they're the hostile force out there that I'm going through. No. Policemen are supposed to be peacekeepers. They're supposed to be our neighbors. They are given a badge because they're part of us and not because they're here to watch over us and enforce laws that were made by somebody else onto us. These are the changes that are going on in our society. The changes that are going on in the government. We have a chance to turn it around in the next 3 years. This upcoming election and the election for president. All of us have got to do everything that we can to have the maximum impact in reestablishing basic principles of individual freedom and rights, limited government, personal responsibility that our founding fathers believed in. It's going to be up to us these next 3 years to turn that around. It's gone so far in the other direction, and I just hope, I deal with these, as I say, we have to have the moderate Republicans on our side. The corporate Republicans have to be on our side or we lose. But there is no excuse whatsoever for us to get behind this crony capitalism that, again, is another factor in our society where people are taking care of their buddies in the corporate world. Everybody else has to compete and pay taxes, except for this group over here who are my friends. No, any corporate Republican that's helping us has to understand we demand liberty and justice for all, and that means equal enforcement of the laws. Nobody gets favorites, and we're not going to curry favor. Right now, by the way, which you don't know, I've been fighting this big battle to protect the American patent system. Do you realize that Google and the biggest multinational corporations in the world are in the middle of trying to destroy the patent system so they can steal what Americans do the best, and that's innovate and create new technologies. It's a huge fight. My Republican colleagues are on the wrong side. How about that? Google is very powerful. Oh, and I remember when, anyway, I was going to tell you the story about, the head of Microsoft, who, the richest man in the world, comes in to the science committee, and all of our Republicans are just kissing up to him. Bill Gates, I just can't believe it. And so they're there, and Bill Gates is there to tell us he wants to change our visa system so that he can bring in people from the outside. And I'm sympathetic to the idea, if we're going to have an immigration system, let's make sure we're getting good guys in who are very high quality people, men and women who are highly educated. But this person wasn't thinking about that. He was thinking about how he can actually give less money to his employees. And I was the only person who pointed that out in the science committee, saying, by the way, Bill, you're complaining you can't get enough good people to go to Microsoft. Why don't you pay them more money? You're the richest man in the world. Maybe you could do with $1 billion less this year and spread it out among your engineers. I'm not here to talk about that. Well, not one of my Republican colleagues stood up to try to back that up. Hey, the American people have to know that we are on their side if they're going to be on our side. And that's what it should be all about. There should be any question in anybody's mind we're against crony capitalism and that the Bill Gates of the world who are also trying to shove Common Core down our throats by financing an elite in our education system. They have to know we are on the side of ordinary Americans because the American people are the only thing that has stood between a helpless world and tyrannical, aggressive gangsters who would take over the world, whether they call them communists, Nazis, or even liberals. So with that said, thank you all very much. I'm doing my best.
Can you stay a couple minutes? A couple questions?
2 questions.
Okay, would you put this mic on? Put that mic on your lapel. And there's a switch you switch on. You've
2
done.
questions, then I got to run.
Okay.
I got another speech. Yeah.
Okay. Hold on a moment.
Okay, what about the border? What about the border? How come we can't keep our border patrol down there and keep these people from coming in the first place?
Well, the reason we can't is because the Republican leadership joined with the president in the last couple of years and sent a message to the poor people of the world. If you can get to the border, especially if you get your kids to the border, they're going to be taken care of. They're going to get free education and free health care. And if you get across, you're going to get a job. And we've been sending that message. There's no way to control the border as long as we are giving benefits and jobs to the poorest people of the world who can make it to the border. And the kids are a direct result of the president, but also our leadership in the Republican Party, who were talking about the DREAM Act, which was interpreted throughout all of the poverty-stricken areas in Central America and South America as the DREAM Act. Oh, they're going to let all the kids in. That's the way it was interpreted. And our guys sent the message too. Thank God it's happened, the crisis, because it's opened up a lot of people's eyes to the nonsense that oh, well, the border's already under control. We can give amnesty and everything like that, and it's not going to have any impact. So, no, it starts with we need a bill. We're never going to get it through the Senate, and the president will never sign it in, that eliminates all benefits and all jobs to illegals, and a demand to enforce it. And the border will take care of itself if we eliminate the magnet.